Are extroverts more confident than introverts? Some people in society might say yes. A 2006 survey referenced by the Harvard Business Review surveyed a number of executive professionals, and of those executives, 65% of them said they saw introversion as a barrier to leadership. So what's the truth and what's just fiction? That's what we're going to be talking about today on Quiet Voice, Fearless Mind. Stay tuned. Welcome to Quiet Voice, Fearless Mind, a show where we help introverts and aspiring leaders to become who they want to be. My name is Terrence Lee, aka the Introvert Leader. Welcome to the show. So if you're listening to this, make sure and leave a rating on the show. Also leave a review. I would love to hear your thoughts on what we talk about today. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and share. And also subscribe to our channel for future updates. So are extroverts more confident than introverts? Let's talk about it. So what inspired this topic in this episode is actually a post that I made on my Instagram page a few weeks ago. And I was talking about how being an introvert does not mean someone's less confident, okay? And got a lot of comments, a lot of feedback when I made that post. And a few people gave personal examples of being in situations at their workplace where their manager basically told them that they were the most qualified for a leadership role, but they weren't going to give it to them because they were too quiet. And when I started to see more and more people giving these stories and talking about that, it was interesting. And then I had breakfast with my dad, coincidentally, like a day after I made that post. And my dad is, more of an introverted personality like me. And he talked about how in his career, he ran to the same thing. He gave me examples of times where he knew and his management knew he was the most qualified for a particular role. And they gave it to someone that was more outgoing, more loud, more talkative, the person that networked a lot more. They got the promotion and got that role over my dad because he was too quiet or perceived as shy. And so the more that I've just been, thinking about this and hearing this feedback and having these conversations, I realized that this is a major issue and a major problem in society. Susan Cain's famous book, Quiet, talks a lot about this. Just the bend toward people with extroverted personalities and the perception that they naturally would be better as leaders or better as people to, lead teams, right? So I really want to talk about this, and I want to debunk a lot of the thoughts out there, a lot of the perceptions out there when it comes to introversion and confidence. Because the reality is there is zero research that links being an introvert with having confidence. So we're going to specifically get into reasons why being an introvert has nothing to do with someone's level of confidence. And we're going to really debunk a lot of the things out there that people think. Introverts are too quiet and too weak to lead. Have you ever heard this before? Well, my name is Terrence, and for years as an introvert, I didn't think I had what it took to be a leader. What I learned was being an introvert is my superpower. If you want to learn how to have success as an introvert, then go to quietvoicefearlessleader.com to learn more. So the first thing to highlight in terms of introverts and confidence is pretty obvious, and that's that some of the most successful world changers that we've seen have been introverts, okay? And for some reason, people either don't know this or it doesn't get highlighted, but you think about somebody like Barack Obama, the first African-American president in the United States, and I remember hearing him speak for the first time, and I remember watching him and just the way that he would speak in front of crowds and handle himself and just the way he carried himself. And he was 100% confident, but in various interviews and different, things that I read, articles, he would describe how he enjoyed working alone. And his personality was more of an introverted personality when he was in office. And just in general, that's who he is, right? So he was not an unconfident person. You think of someone like an Elon Musk, the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla, and all of the things. This guy has all these companies, all these things going on. Extremely confident person, but an introvert. Right. So, I mean, that's just two examples. I could go on and on. Michael Jordan, NBA legend, Steve Wozniak, creator of the first Apple computer. I have like 10 Apple products in here in my office right now. I mean, the list could go on and on and on. So we've already seen that introverts can be extremely successful. We've seen that introverts can be extremely confident. So, why do we just as society assume that because someone has an introverted personality, they lack confidence? It just doesn't make sense. It's been disproven too many times, and there are too many examples that are to the contrary. So the next thing for us to do is to focus on what being an introvert or an extrovert actually means. And the reality is that these words are just tied to stimulus. So being an introvert, we typically get our energy from being alone, where an extrovert typically gets their energy from being around people. And so there's really nothing in the definition of introversion or extroversion that is linked to confidence. And there's actually no research to date that links being an introvert or an extrovert to being more or less confident. So there's just nothing there that links those things. They're just related to stimulus. Now, I will say that for me, and I talk about this in my book, Quiet Voice, Fearless Leader, I have in my life had struggles with confidence. And, I'm very vulnerable in talking about it. For me, one of my biggest ones was speaking in front of people, also speaking up in meetings at work, and a number of other things. But those confidence issues that I had were not linked to my introversion. They weren't linked to the fact that I need time to recharge by myself. They were just linked to some personal things with me, right? And I do give tips, and I do talk about how to grow in your confidence, how to build your confidence as an introvert. But that's because I know that there are some fellow introverts out there that share some of the struggles that I had, right? Some of the struggles that I may still have sometimes. And so I do talk about confidence, but it's not to say that being an introvert means you're less confident. That's just not true. And unfortunately, in society, I think a lot of people assume that if someone is quiet, if someone is not the loudest person in the room, if they're not talking constantly, that they're somehow not as confident. It just isn't true. They might be the most confident person in the room, right? And so, again, we got to debunk a lot of these myths, a lot of these thoughts. Being a quiet, observant person does not mean that you're less confident. So if you're watching this or listening and that's you, that's your personality and the way you are, don't view yourself as less confident than anybody else in the room. You could be the absolute most confident person there. And the last thing that I want to highlight, and this is a big one. This is big. I'm passionate about this one. Being loud does not mean somebody is confident, okay? So I know that a lot of times, and I've seen this play out so many times, and I know a lot of other people have seen it too, because I talk to fellow introverts and they know what I'm talking about. When you're in a scenario, it could be at work and business, it could be in your personal life, and there's a room of people, and the people that are talking the most, right, during a discussion, or if let's say there's a disagreement and people are like yelling or they're loud or they're getting very assertive and things like that in this discussion, those people might be assumed to be the strongest people there. They might be assumed to be, oh, that person is a take charge kind of person. That person has leadership potential because they're talking a lot, or they're this or they're that. And it's just not true. It's just not true. Like, they don't have more confidence because they are talking more or they're talking louder. Okay. You could have somebody that is sitting back in that same room and they're watching everyone that's talking loud and talking a lot and interrupting each other. And they're just sitting back and they're the most confident person there because they're observing everything going on. They know what's going on. They're watching everybody's body language, physical cues, everything like that. And they're observing the entire situation and they're fully confident in their skin and fully confident in their space. But a lot of people, again, society may not see that because they may not be talking. but it doesn't mean they're not confident, right? So, this idea in society, and this becomes a problem, I believe, in the corporate environment and the business environment, because you'll have people that do amazing work. You'll have people that are completely in tune with their work and what they're doing. But because they don't talk more, right? Because they might get talked over in conversations, talked over in discussions, they don't get to shine. They don't get seen as much, right? And so that particular company, they might assume the person that's louder, the person that's talking more, is somehow the better person for the role, or the person that should get the next level role. And it's a big issue, and it happens all the time. I've had enough conversations now to realize that it is a systemic thing, right? And, not to say that all companies do that. I mean, I'm in a situation where, I'm able to be in a leadership role and maintain my introversion, and I love that. I'm able to authentically be myself. And one of the great things is that I've been able to actually use my introversion to my strength. And I love that, right? So it's not to say that every culture is that way. But in society, there are a lot of cultures that are. There are a lot of spaces that are like that. And so the reality is, being an introvert, having that personality type, it does not mean that somebody lacks confidence. And because somebody is loud, it does not mean that they have confidence. We've got to get away from this mindset. And I know that as introverts, we can think that it's the truth. For a long time, I thought it was the truth. I thought because I wasn't the loud person, I somehow was less confident than the person that was. And then the person that's more extroverted, they can view us a certain way and just say, oh, well, they don't speak up because they're just maybe not as confident. They're shy. They're this, they're that. It's just not true. Now, people can lack confidence. People can have issues they're dealing with mentally, or just, in their mindset, right? Like, I had a lot of things in my mind I had to get through, but it wasn't because I was an introvert. Okay. So we have got to stop linking those words together. Introversion does not mean lacking confidence. Being loud does not mean you have confidence. So listen, I hope you enjoyed the episode today. I hope that we were able to really touch on the topic of introversion and confidence. I think that this is something that a lot of people deal with and a lot of people see day to day. And if we're not careful as introverts, we can allow this to infect our mindset. We can start to believe when people link introversion with lacking confidence. And the reality is, we have to fight that. We have the power to be confident. We have the power to affirm ourselves, the power to step into greatness, into what we're supposed to be. And if you're listening to this and you're someone with a more extroverted personality, I would challenge you, and you may already think this way, but in the case that you don't, I would challenge you to view your introverted, friend, family member, coworker, business partner differently. I would challenge you to not just assume that you're the more confident person, you're more sure of yourself because you might talk more, because your personality is different. Don't assume they lack confidence. Don't assume that they're not sure of themselves or they have to come into their own or anything like that. They might be 100% sure of themselves. They might just do things differently. So I want to truly challenge you, think about things differently. And when it's time for people to get promotions or for people to get to the next level in their careers or whatever the case may be, think about those people that are more introverted that might get looked over. Because unfortunately, I think as society, we have a long way to go in this space to view people of all personality types equally when it comes to opportunities. So let's challenge each other. Let's try to think through this differently and realize that confidence is an internal thing. It should not be linked to a personality type. So before we go, I just want to leave with a quote from my favorite basketball player of all time and fellow introvert, Michael Jordan. And it's really my go-to quote whenever I begin to doubt myself or feel that, my confidence is waning a little bit whenever I'm trying to do something. And so that quote says, "I can accept failure, but I can't accept not trying." I can accept failure, but I can't accept not trying. So, if you're listening to this, and whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or whoever you are, if you ever feel yourself not feeling confident about the next steps, or you have something that you want to birth. Maybe it's some idea, or maybe you want to go for some new role at work, or maybe there's something in your personal life you want to do and something's been holding you back. I would encourage you that it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail, but it's not okay to not try. So go out there and try, and be okay with making mistakes, and be okay with falling. And every time that you fall or you fail, at least you'll learn. So focus on the learning, focus on the lesson, and never be afraid to try. There's nothing wrong with trying. Regardless of the outcome, as long as you tried your best and as long as you put your best foot forward, you can hold your head high and you're good. So until next time, remember, there's only one you and there's only one life. So make it count. God bless.